think that, we have to continue to spread our ideas around, and having an ally like Angelo will only help spread the message even further. We are going to ultimately have other local representatives come on so we can share this idea, because this is as Angelo alluded to, this is really supposed to be nonpartisan representation. You could be partisan in your personal life, but when you're representing people, you're really supposed to be representing everybody. And this hyperpartisan divide is the type of thing that we're trying to quell right now. And unfortunately, the city commission in Pembroke Pines has a very heavy partisan divide. And
it isn't even just, honestly, it's petty and personal there.
It is.
I will say that throughout the entire campaigning season and what we've seen in the different races and different candidates, that the commissioner race in Pines was hands down the nastiest.
It was bad.
And, that I don't say that in a good way. Like, it's not a good thing. It's not a positive thing. So that a lot of the policy in Pines, I'm sorry to say, is personal. Yeah. It's like an ego pissing match situation. I'm sorry, but it is.
We don't need to get into the logistics of what went on. The only thing that matters is the results. And since it's a 3-2 situation,
it's a problem.
We don't have to get all three.
No, we just got to flip one.
Just got to get one.
And I don't know. Those three are pretty tight, and they stick together and they form a little block.
But I think that there may be a way in with one of them.
Maybe.
We'll see.
So, we'll get back to the news a little bit. You talked about the tax hike. But the other DeSantis thing is the sports betting deal that he signed with the Seminole tribe. Now, I have to tell you,
anybody who understands anything about why incumbents don't lose and why it's very rare that they do and why it's very unlikely that DeSantis is going to lose next year is because of this particular legislation.
You're talking about the Seminole legislation?
DeSantis signs new sports betting deal with the Seminole tribe of Florida. Once again, this is red meat to the base. This is also appealing to independent voters. And it just gets back to this whole idea that Florida walks to the beat of a different drum.
But let's explain. Do you understand the legislation?
If you, Miss Attorney, can
it's okay. So for people who don't know, Florida is very interesting when it comes to gambling. And that has to do with the fact that the Seminole tribe is basically exists in a very powerful way here. And unlike a lot of tribes, the Seminole tribe is different. The Seminole tribe is not impoverished. The Seminole tribe is not a vulnerable community. They are big business. They own all the Hard Rocks in the world, all of them, except the one in Vegas, which I think just recently closed. I think it did. But so the Seminole tribe owns all of them. So the one in Bangkok, Seminoles own it. So the point is the Seminoles
in Bangkok. Sorry.
The Seminoles are formidable when it comes to protecting their economic situation. And their economic situation has set up in Florida in such a way that they are always allowed to be one step ahead of the state when it comes to gambling. It's always been the case. So for example, when Florida got the lotto, the Seminoles were allowed to have the machines, the
slot machines.
Yeah,
that was before table games.
Right. Yeah. So then when the state of Florida started allowing the next level, the Seminoles were then allowed to be one step ahead, and they were allowed to add blackjack. So this is something where the Seminoles have always been part and parcel with the gambling in Florida. So this new legislation is going to, it says, generate a minimum of $2.5 billion in new revenue over the next 5 years. But what it's doing is it's expanding the pari-mutuels and giving the Seminoles will be complete control over the sports betting for the state. The Seminoles will be in charge of sports betting. It's opening it up in other parts of the state. The Seminoles will oversee it. But now the Seminole in their casinos will be, it's now the Virgin Hotel.
And we all know who owns that.
Well, yeah. So, but what's going to happen now is, so the tribal gambling will now expand to include craps and roulette. So it takes it to the next level. State gambling laws usually go in levels. So there's like level 1 gambling, which is like lotto, level 2 gambling, which is pari-mutuels. Then you're allowed slot machines. It's like there's levels. And so this will basically increase. And the agreement is, when you allow the Seminoles to do this, let me look up the exact dollar amount right here because I'm not sure. Yes. Larger and expansive than any other gaming compact in U.S. history, this agreement increases the projected revenue to the state of Florida from the Seminole tribe to over $6 billion over the next decade, with a guaranteed minimum of $2.5 billion in the first 5 years.
That's a lot.
So essentially, the Seminoles pay the state to run its gambling. So this is the kick that the state gets. And that's just the deal here in Florida. It goes through the Seminoles. So this is a huge increase. Obviously, the usual suspects that are against gambling are against this. I don't have a problem with gambling. My issue is, where does the revenue go?
I agree.
Yeah. So as long, and that's something that I feel like what our stance is on this bill is going to be completely irrelevant to where the money goes. But the actual gambling issue, to me, is a no-brainer.
No, and listen, I understand that people have their opinions about gambling, but what I think is the problem is that gambling, like anything, is an addiction for a lot of people, and it usually ends up becoming, as Farming Ganja suggests, a net negative. But what you have to remember is that the casinos in general are not in the business of trying to get you to do the right thing. So very rarely, if ever, are you going to show up at a casino and there's going to be a big sign saying, "Do you need help? Gamblers Anonymous."
Right. Well,
you're not going to find that.
I know. And while I appreciate that, for the same reason, I wouldn't ban alcohol. I am pretty supportive of gambling. People have personal issues. That's their demons that they have to deal with. It's unfortunate.
But we also live in a society that doesn't want to help people solve their problems.
That's a separate issue. This is, I'm dealing with this from just the perspective of increased gambling. So anyway, there's going to be increased gambling, most likely, because usually that goes in the direction that it's going. The other bill that is interesting is this new bill that's going to address the sea level rise, but does nothing to address the emissions that are causing it.
Of course not.
And so there's this new bill. So new and improved seawalls in Miami and West Palm Beach, upgraded drainage in Key West and Doral, and reconstructed roadways could all be underway with the Resilient Florida grant program that is established under this bill. It would provide up to $100 million a year to combat sea level rise and flooding. The Resilient Florida grant program would be created within the Department of Environmental Protection and allocate state-funded grants to local governments to address sea level rise, assess flooding risks. And so this all sounds great, right? But the problem is it does absolutely nothing and doesn't acknowledge the most prevalent cause of these crises, which is climate change. It establishes the policies to deal with the infrastructure, but it's not dealing with anything reducing greenhouse gas emissions or other problems that are creating our issue.
We're not dealing with the heart of the issue, which is sea level rise is not going to be mitigated until we deal with the infrastructure problems that we have in this state. The state is not run by solar, even though it could easily be, at least majority-wise anyway. We've talked at length in the past about the possibility of the new nuclear technology that could be very effective in this state. Michael Schellenberger, if you guys haven't, we definitely need to get him back on the show.
Yeah, I mean, we have definitely, look, we go back and forth on the idea with nuclear, and people argue it all different directions.
The bottom line is that
we're doing it wrong.
Nuclear is definitely the answer to a transitional
energy
source over coal and natural gas. Right. I mean, it just has to be.
But
and you would be an absolute fool at this point to think that we can keep doing it, because we have these myriad of problems that exist in the state right now. You've got red tide. You've got blue-green algae blooms. You've got toxic runoff with Big Sugar. Big Sugar is not regulated in this state in any capacity. As a matter of fact, there is a clause.
They get subsidies. We pay them to pollute.
The agri water that
we need to get Bill Sugar on here.
Well, yes, we do. That is a great idea.
Yeah.
Definitely got to reach out to him. You have the relationship with him. And we'll talk after the show on that. But what is very important here for people to remember is that Big Sugar, with the water agriculture that goes to Big Sugar, that takes precedent over clean drinking water in the state of Florida. I bet you didn't know that.
Yes.
But it does. And that's part of the reason why, listen, I have a good friend. I don't name him. He's high up in the Democratic Party. He tried to convince me that Florida Crystals was doing it the right way. And I'm like, no, they're not. No different than something very interesting that just happened the other day. Listen, I like Elon Musk in terms of what he's fighting for, but as a billionaire, he's a tyrant like the rest of them. He has given We are now just into the second quarter of 2021. He has already given, I kid you not, $150 million in charity. Why is that?
But yet I'm still considering him to be part of our bootlicker story of the week.
He is.
Okay, by not him necessarily, but
we have a very good idea. Somebody who I think is very deserving of being bootlicker.
Well, we don't need to announce that, but the point is it's connected to this.
No. And then what I think is
He's so generous.
Yeah, well, of course. But there's a reason. Even if it's possible that Biden might actually do something, and again, he's 100 days into his presidency, he's been lukewarm at best. He's handled the rollout very well with COVID. I give him total credit for that. The administration has done a much better job, obviously, than the Trump administration. That was a low bar. But in terms of actual teeth policy to help average people in this country, little to nothing, if at all. If he does implement a wealth tax, just to 3%, I believe, Elon Musk would have to pay $5.5 billion in tax.
So Elon, you can take your $150 million and shove it.
And the reason he's giving $150 million in charity. And remember how much of that is, how much of that is a write-off.
But not just that, but what is that charity? Because people say, oh, Bill Gates, he's so charitable. Yeah, he's creating like GMO factory plants to get everybody in his little food.
We're not going to discuss Bill Gates tonight because that is a stuff, but we are going to be discussing, we are going to be discussing Bill Gates on Thursday. It has just been brought to our attention. This just came on the wire in the last few hours. Bill Gates is not allowing the formula for the vaccine to be implemented in Cuba, in third world countries across the world.
Well, okay, so I got a specific call from our friend, shout out to Peter Seidman down in Miami, our friends with the Hands Off Cuba and Venezuela group, that Cuba is officially being barred from getting the vaccine. We're holding back. We're still sanctioning these people, even though we have Biden in there now. So why is Cuba still not able to get what they need from us?
You know, the funny thing is we talked at length, especially when, you know, I really started getting into politics. I mean, I've always been involved, but I really got into it, obviously, when Bernie started running in the spring of 2015. And the hardest thing that I went after Hillary on was her foundation. That, more than anything else, is what is detrimental to society, because it's a front group for rich aristocrats.
And isn't that so?
Anything,
but doesn't that what you think of when you think of people like Elon Musk donating money to whatever it is, whatever his foundation
and again, we'll talk about this on Thursday. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. While that may do some good things, the amount that it actually does good in conjunction with how much they're actually making out like bandits, it would make you sick.
Yeah. So
that's why they do things like this.
Yeah.
They say that, you know, Trump has always had the philosophy of any PR is good PR, but people like Bill Gates, they only want good PR because that's all they can tolerate. Because if PR started getting bad for them, they would be in the type of situation where the momentum would grow so big where people would say, yeah, we got to tax these SOBs.
And that's ultimately where we have to go, is that a lot of these things have to be nationalized and taxed to the nth degree. But so swinging to the other side of the pendulum and addressing some issues of homelessness. And the final issue of
the night, which I think is very important and a good thing.
Well, it is and it isn't.
It is and it
This is one of those things where it's a good thing, but it shouldn't even have to exist because there shouldn't be the problem that it's solving. So in any case, Broward County has announced that it is going to, there's something called the CARES Act rental assistance. Renters in Broward County seeking relief from past due and unpaid rent and utilities may qualify for the COVID-19 Emergency Rental Assistance Program, launched, this was 2 days ago, in Broward. With $53 million grant from the U.S. Treasury, Broward hopes to help stabilize housing. So this will provide eligible households with up to 12 months of rent and utility assistance, plus an additional 3 months if funds are available, and if it's determined extra months are needed to ensure housing stability. So here's how people are eligible. You're going to have to go and see, but to be eligible, a household must be renting a unit, apartment, or house within Broward County and include at least one individual who qualifies for unemployment or has experienced a reduction in household income, incurred significant costs, or experienced a financial hardship due to COVID-19, demonstrates a risk of experiencing homelessness or housing instability, has a household income at or below 80% of the area median. So if you want to check that out, visit broward.org/rent assistance. And that you can see if you qualify for that. But so there is money available right now for people who qualify. If knowing what I know, I would get on that as soon as possible.
Well, I guess.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.